the Low Tide Boyz, a swimrun podcast. I am Chip.
I'm Chris, and this is the gear review of the Ark Sports Keel Swimrun Pull Buoy. With us, we also have the awesome ladies from Swimrun Labs.
Welcome.
Hi.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
This is great.
If for some reason you have not heard of Swimrun Labs, Annie and Brooke, why don't you give us a little your elevator pitch, if you will?
Swimrun Labs is your online source for everything swimrun and it's North America centric. So we are trying to get a bunch of education out there, a bunch of gear reviews. There's an events calendar that's looking spicy this year, but it can be found at swimrunlabs.com, and there's something for pretty much everyone at every level who's interested in swimrun.
Love it.
It's a great site. For sure, check it out, swimrunlabs.com.
I love it. So,
training resources as well.
Resources as well. So the way we got these pull buoys, we all paid for them. Ark Sports has not sponsored this episode. We assume they will give us their blessing, but yeah, we all paid for these, and then we each used them in training, and Chipper and I used them at Attila Catalina.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like we understand pull buoys, and we definitely understand this one. And it's also been a source of meme fodder for us. So it's kind of taken a life of its own, but we are intrigued by pull buoys.
Absolutely. So the overall on this from the Ark site, it comes in one size. It's pretty mondo and one color black. The price is €45, which roughly translates, depending on, international markets, could be $50 US. So the dimensions of this thing are, it's 28 centimeters long, it's 26 centimeters high, and it has a width of 12 centimeters. So it's thick. The OTLO rules about the maximum size a pull buoy can be is 32 centimeters by 30 by 15. So it's buttoned right up to kind of the max size that OTLO is allowing for pull buoys. So just keep that in mind. It's almost the max that you can get.
Yeah, and the pull buoy is basically made of EVA foam, which is a very, very industrial type of foam. The actual EVA stands for ethylene vinyl acetate.
Whoa.
Okay.
Wow. And, good job.
Yeah. So it's pretty thick. They use it in shoes a lot because of its recoil. And on the site, it claims that this pull buoy, the force of newtons, which is basically a unit of force for gravity, is, what was it, 41.6 newtons?
46.1 newtons.
So that's almost like 4 times the force of gravity, because gravity is like 9.8 or 10, something like that. So for as far as buoyancy is concerned, it's got a lot of it.
Buoyant AF, as I think is a technical term of what they would
Yep.
use. So we're going to dive in. And again, why we brought Annie and Brooke on from Swimrun Labs here, they have a much more scientific approach to testing than the Low Tide Boyz. We're like, yeah, that feels faster. It looks cooler. That's kind of our vibe. But the Swimrun Labs, Annie and Brooke, are way more scientific. I can see them with stopwatches in the pool, sprinting out, checking lap times and split times and stuff. So we're going to break down each section. We're going to have a swim functionality, transition functionality, and then run. And at the very end, what you've all been waiting for, the pull buoy review system that we'll shed more light on. But let's get started. So we'll start in the water. So this is the pull buoy. How did the swim functionality? I'll start it here. Obviously, the buoyancy of this thing is amazing. It almost feels too buoyant at times. If you're trying to sit upright for some reason in the water, it's almost, you can't do it because it's like you're getting pushed up to the surface.
I remember warning you the first time because I got the keel, and I initially got the keel and you got the pontoon.
Yeah.
And you wanted to try it out, and I just like, hey, if you sit up in open water, just be ready for it, because you'll go ass over tea kettle if you're not.
Yeah, I actually used it on an open water swim with my husband, and he just swims in a wetsuit, and we stopped to chat a little bit halfway through, and I went to go sit up and then just completely face planted it back into the water.
100%.
It was
So
Lots
it's
of buoyancy.
amazing buoyancy when you're horizontal.
Yes.
It's an excellent. It's used for horizontal use. Only.
That should be like a safety warning, like on the side of it.
Now,
Or it could be a training tool for unicyclists who want to be in a water training situation.
Oh,
Yeah.
Definitely.
I love that idea.
We'll make sure we send that up to the
Unicycle podcast coming soon.
Yeah.
So these are fast, according to my testing, which not as scientific as the Swimrun Labs ladies. I tested the current Roka pull buoy, which is the one I had used before. It's just
Which is a swimming.
it's a swimmer's
swimming
pull buoy,
tool.
like a normal sized one, I would say. Then I tested that against the Ark pontoon, which is their kind of double barrel, almost like, hey, I got 2-liter bottles of Coca-Cola here kind of attached together, that look, versus the Keel. And the Keel tested 5 seconds faster per 100.
Mm-hmm.
I try my best to exert the same amount of effort.
Sure.
And I actually did the Keel last. So I was more potentially fatigued. This wasn't all-out effort. This is probably maybe an 80%. So to me, that was fast enough to know bigger is better for pool buoys for myself personally. And I'm a bigger guy. I'm 6 foot, 200 pounds-ish. And my blowhard review is almost done, I promise. Great mounting options as well. So I personally use the Lasso.
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 Wow. Where did Lasso come from?
Wow. It's quite a bunch of you.
Lasso style, which is around the waist, and there is a string that sort of attaches to the Ark, but it also would be great for a leg side mount as well. So I'm going to pass the swim functionality over to Annie.
So we included the Ark Keel in a trial of lower body flotation options that was done last winter, and Brooke managed the nitty-gritty of this. It was a non-randomized but pretty darn controlled trial, looking at a pair of calf floats, a sort of a standard pull buoy, the Finis brand, the pontoon style, but it wasn't the pontoon. It was called the Elite Swimrun pull buoy, which is sort of a DIY awesome product, I think, right out of a houseboat in Sweden.
Swimrun Santa.
I love it.
It was Swimrun Santa's houseboat, yep. And then we tested it against the Swimrunner's Pariah pull buoy, which is quite similar in a lot of ways to the Ark, but has some differences. And
we took into
we controlled for fatigue.
Yeah. So I rotated each item. So we did 5 200s with each, and then rotated their order on the next, skipping every other day.
So it was a 5-day trial. Anyway, it was quite particular.
This is why we brought him on.
The Keel smoked them. I mean, it was a very close win between the Keel and then the Swimrunner's Pariah buoy, which is a giant Mondo, as Chipper said, Mondo black foam buoy. But it was the fastest in the speed pool trials. And for me, just for feel, when I put that thing between my legs, it was like I was swimming downhill, or maybe it was like I was swimming in the body position that a true swimmer swims in, which was great. I need all the help I can get in that department. And as a smaller person, it was a powerful leveling agent to my swim position. And one thing that I would say has been challenging for me in the swims is on a longer swim run mission or a longer swim, especially in salt water where there's that potential friction element of the salt. I actually get some chafing from this pull buoy in the distal thigh area, right above my knees. And I think part of that might be due to the fact this thing is asymmetrically shaped. And that design element is pretty dang brilliant on paper because I think it's designed to just minimize any gapping between your thighs and the pull buoy. And in doing so, maximize the hydrodynamics. But I think everybody's thighs are different. So I have got a different thing going on above my knees than whoever this buoy was designed around. But I will also nerd out even farther on that chafing element to say that it has shown to chafe a tall, skinny guy, a short, skinny guy, but over lots of use, it has not been shown to chafe a medium height, medium statured man and a medium height, medium statured woman. But it has been shown to chafe myself.
So I consider myself a medium
depends on who you are.
I consider myself to be a medium-sized person, and for me, I mean, I love the pull buoy, but I felt like it actually wasn't that comfortable to have between your legs. Even with the lasso, even having it really up in your groin, like it sort of required work to kind of keep it there. And a regular swim pull buoy is just you just kind of forget about it if you're just doing tons of laps. This was different for sure.
It's your turn.
And I think that's a good point for like training, because I was training with it a little bit in open water just this winter, and with a full wetsuit on, and no lasso or hookup, just the raw deal. And my adductors were like sore afterwards from just trying to keep it in place. It kept kind of slipping down, and it's definitely the girth is a little on the awkward side.
Yeah, I mean, and I found that sort of uncomfortableness was mitigated a little bit by using a lasso system, where it kind of helps kind of get it into your groin, so you don't have to do that much work of kind of keeping your knees together, kind of thing.
And do any of you, Andy or Brooke, use the thigh method for mounting your buoys?
I started using with Swimrun, my first just this last year I transitioned to the back. But I was using the thigh for a while. I did use the thigh. I used Ark during Orcas on my thigh last year during the long course. And you guys did that race. So, there's some single track trails. Well, we'll get to running, I guess. But in terms of, the thigh attachment for swimming, I thought it worked well. It kept, the thigh attachment really keeps it in place for swimming.
And Annie, I thought your point of it does feel, when you mentioned that it said, it feels like you're swimming downhill, that's the exact thought I have that I had using it. It is like your ass is almost out of the water, and it feels like you're just, like if you were to do a run and it's like a slow downhill slope and you're like, man, I'm feeling really quick. My turnover is great. It's like, you're going downhill like 2 or 3%. That's exactly how it felt.
And I think, so I'm just going to take a quick bird's eye view of things. There's a lot of people who think that, I'm a great swimmer, I don't need a pull buoy. I think a pull buoy is going to hold me back. In Swimrun, it's an advantage. I don't care if you're like an Olympic gold medalist.
Like if you're talking about 6 seconds, like for me, it was 6 seconds off my 100 time. And Chip, I did the same thing, like about 80%, like a race pace kind of deal. And 6 seconds is huge when you're talking about miles of swimming.
I mean, you're talking 10,000 yards. That adds up. It's like an hour less of swimming.
It adds really up to a math problem I can't do in my head.
And the weight, it's not like you're carrying a significant amount of weight. So like the weight we did it like in grams for the Ark is 182 grams when it's dry, and 196 when it's wet. And then if you look at like a standard pull buoy, that's 142 grams when it's dry and 199 when it's wet. So it's like actually even heavier to carry with you than the Ark is when it's wet. I think it takes on more water than the EVA foam does. But
I'm curious.
Yeah, well, the EVA foam, because it's so tight, sort of self-contained.
It's super dense.
Pressed. Yeah, it just doesn't.
Interesting.
It's not as spongy.
Yeah.
Well, let's transition to the transitions. How does the Ark Keel work for the swim to run transition, and then the run to swim transition for everyone?
Well, I think, for me, the swim to run transition is just much easier, because you just pop out of the water and the thing just kind of explodes out of your crotch.
It's like a rocket.
There it is. It does. Make sure it doesn't hit you in the face.
It does launch.
Yeah. So, so for guys.
But you got to make sure it launches the right way. Like I did a swim run on Monday, and you got to really like get that crunch. Like when you're swimming, like crunch your legs down to get your feet underneath you so it pops out in front.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you're doing like the lasso technique and you let it slip out the back, you have like a lovely.
That's what I was just gonna say for the
G-string.
fellas, that can get into your jellies, which is
Yeah.
but then it the shape of it is actually pretty helpful if you're gonna put it on your hip because it kind of matches the shape of your hip for the most part. And also, if you're putting it in the back, the fact that it has that deep groove in the middle makes it easy to just put it around the lasso.
Well, I was going to ask you guys, where does that sit on you guys, that groove? Because it seems like a perfect like butt groove, right?
It's right on.
Yeah.
I have the lasso. What am I doing?
Why do you keep saying it like that?
I got to edit all this lasso stuff out.
I think you got to leave it in now.
Edit it
you're
out.
having like a stroke or something.
I've been just eating a lot of croissants. Is that
No, it's called croissants.
Oh, okay. There we go. Can I have some of them croissants?
You had some like chabless with dinner.
I'll try it again. My lasso. No.
Oh my God, you did it again.
Lasso.
Yeah, lasso.
The lasso goes right around where I would wear my pants, pretty much. So it does hook up. Half of it is on my bum, and the other half is kind of on my back. And I'm not using that word for the rest of the show.
Okay, yeah.
So I think I need to dial in the lasso a bit more because I've tried tightening it, but if I'm wearing it down where the dip is like fitting nicely, where my bum is fitting nicely into the dip, so it kind of goes with my body.
Mm-hmm.
It actually, the lasso drops down below my hips as I'm running, so I'm like having to like hike it up every few steps. But if I wear it up around my waist, like my true waist, then it stays. But then the shape of it is like, it's a little awkward because then you have the middle of the pull buoy at your low back. And so you just have this big like gap there.
Interesting. Yeah. For me, it ends up kind of riding up because I got a big old Puerto Rican bum. And yeah, so it just ends up just kind of riding up, but yeah, I didn't find that uncomfortable. It was only when I was actually cabbed down where there was just a lot of material in the back.
Junk in the trunk.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff back there.
Yeah, and then we're talking about transition, aren't we?
We are.
Land to water, I find can be a little tricky too. If you wade in a little too deep and try placing it a little too late, you're kind of like wrestling the shark in between your legs, because it just keeps wanting to like.
Yeah, you're like, you have to drown the pull buoy.
Yeah.
It goes to the point earlier about it's almost too buoyant. So you have to, great point, Brooke. You have to, right before you head in the water, you got to have it out and kind of in there and maybe do like a penguin walk into the final bits of the water, or a dolphin dive or something.
Yeah, in training, what I found is when you're sort of get into the water like up to your knees, and then I would put in the pull buoy. So then as I was sort of entering the water, it was kind of already there, and
stabilized.
I just like get horizontal like immediately. And just
and then you got like, I don't know if you guys do you did the jump off the dock in Casco, but did you do the jump off the rocks in Orcas?
I have yet to do Orcas.
Yeah, we haven't done Orcas.
Oh, you haven't done Orcas at all?
This year.
It's on our wish list.
Hopefully.
Oh, man. Okay, so there's a jump off the rocks, and Annie and I got all our gear ready before the jump, and that included the Ark Keel between my thighs. And when we hit the water, man, it was like, think about that.
Like hitting a trampoline?
4 times the force of gravity, like coming straight
going
up your crotch.
Yeah.
Like it was a pick me up for sure. But it got me going.
And hopefully it shoots you in the right
that was
direction.
Our fastest swim.
Yeah, hopefully it shoots you in the right
big
direction.
zoom out, I think, is get to know this animal because it does act like an animal in the water a bit. It's it's quite powerful. And it's worth spending time being like, okay, how am I going to enter the water with my friend, the Keel, because that thing is in charge.
And I would say that's
think for transitions, if it's on your leg, like your leg's going to go shooting out of the water if you aren't ready for it. And so it really is just like figure out where you want that thing and practice a little bit.
Yeah.
You got to tame it.
So I'm sensing some
water Mustang.
I was going to go aqua behemoth. Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
Water Mustang works. That's like from Frozen 2, though.
Well, I was going with the lasso analogy.
Dude, now I can't get it. I can't get that out of my head.
They should actually come out with like their third line of
Yeah.
buoys could be like the Ark Mustang with the lasso.
We'll talk to them about
attachment.
that. Any final thoughts on transitions?
One final thought on transition is that due to the asymmetrical design that's designed to accommodate for your groin shape versus your thigh shape, you have to have your noggin on your shoulders to put that thing in the right direction. And so that extra piece of cognitive bandwidth may or may not be there, depending on where you are in the race. And that could either be a plus or a minus for this pull buoy, depending on who you are and how you keep your poop in a group.
That's a good point. Ark will say that the pull buoy has some like signage on it to tell you which way is up and which way is down.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're 4 hours into
you're not going to read
event,
that like 14 print font,
If
you know.
you're-
And even if you got to also think about if you're doing like a thigh attachment, you have to think about how. I mean, I guess it's symmetrical front and back, so it could work on either thigh.
Yeah.
But I'm not quite sure that what they gain from that asymmetrical design is really worth it. You know, like if I'm curious what their testing was with that, like why they made that design decision and like how did they decide on the angle? Because you know everybody's gap between their thighs is totally different.
I don't even have a gap
women and
between my
men
thighs.
and different sizes. Yeah, like what's that? If I designed a pull buoy, it would just have like a thin strip. But yeah, so I'm curious, you know, what you gain from that because I feel like it logistically kind of just makes it a little bit more challenging.
Yeah.
Sure, and definitely from like it's definitely designed forward and it looks amazing, right? But
Yeah.
It looks super
different.
sexy.
That's
So
different
cool.
from actual utility.
Yeah, one little trick that you can do, they are black, but if you get one of those silver Sharpies, you can almost just draw a big arrow. I wrote either my Chip or Low Tide Boyz, like in a way that I would read it. So that way really quickly I can look and be like, this is the way, you know, it says Chip into my crotch or something like it. Just something that
He also calls his crotch
arrow
Chip. That's
into
not
my
weird at all.
crotch.
That's not weird at all.
Insert here.
So let's talk about running.
Let's do it.
Ladies,
We'll
do you
let,
have
we'll
any,
let the Swimrun Labs ladies take the running lead on this.
My big thing with running, I think, is what made me really change my attachment location. So I originally was a thigh attacher, and this on your thigh really like gives you a whole new body width. And if you're kind of doing some of the narrow, more technical trail that you'll find in races like Orcas, where
single track.
Single track. You're going downhill. There's slick routes, lots of moss, so agility is pretty key. And this thing just like hits a tree stump or hits a branch. It like throws you enough off kilter that if you're not careful, it could bring you down. See, it's an animal.
Yeah.
So then I transitioned to the back, and since I've done the back and I've done some single track stuff, I haven't had a problem with it. Like it's completely unknown that it's on my back, except for that weird gap issue.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that loading it on the back is the way to go for people of smaller stature, women. I think that's probably going to work out well.
Yeah, I mean, I've only used it on the back, so I can't speak to the thigh, but I had no problems with it, again, except when I was maybe capped down. There was just a lot of material in the back. And what I ended up doing at Catalina was actually tucking the wetsuit kind of down into the groove of the keel to kind of just like fold it in and kind of collect.
Like a little
Adds a
like
little more
convertible
attention to your attachment.
It does.
Situation that you have.
It did.
And I, similar to Brooke, I was a side mounter as well, or thigh mounter, and just the annoyance of it slipping down and constantly every 10 steps having to yank it back up my thigh or try to tighten it as I'm running just annoyed the shit out of me. So the back thing really worked well for me.
I think one, and I'm totally speaking for you here, Chip.
Let's hear it.
But the the material of the pull buoy because it's not super slick. The difference between this and the pontoon that you initially used, that thing was like slipping and sliding all over the place.
Oh,
because
yeah.
it was so slick.
PVC or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So in that respect, the material they use has like a little bit of a rough surface, so it's more likely to stay in place
more
than
friction.
something really
Well, and a lot
slick.
too. Like we experimented a lot with thigh attachments, and I don't know how did you crisscross your thigh attachment?
No, we just had two.
It's just like parallel loops.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the parallel loop thing, I was constantly struggling with that where it'd like fall down and I'm pulling it up. But if you crisscross the loops for the thigh attachment, it creates like a kind of a focal point around the X that kind of gets right up into your groin and it stays there.
It's very smart.
Yeah.
We had a single tension toggle that we could pull to tighten both loops at the same time because we had. Anyway, it's hard to
Nice.
I can't
Yeah.
explain
Yeah,
properly.
but it was somewhat adjustable, but you were still like
It was
pretty
still
much
annoying, and I'm
jamming
like,
that thing
I'm
up.
doing this thing. I felt like I was making a tourniquet on my thigh. You know, I was kind of getting worried
You're like
that
cutting off your femoral artery.
Yeah, how-
Yeah, you're like, how come my right leg is atrophied? Dang it.
just dragging it behind
It's
me.
like you're looking pretty blue, but just on the right side. But yeah, I think other than that, I think running with it wasn't. I mean, it was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's super lightweight for the
what it
power
is,
that
yeah.
it packs,
Yeah.
you know?
So, any last thoughts from anybody here on the run functionality before we go into our infamous Low Tide Boyz Pull Buoy meter ranking system?
It's so infamous.
I think, yeah. The only thing we didn't talk about that I think is important to note, because other pull buoy brands have this, but is it doesn't come with an attachment. Now, if you go to a race where Ark is there selling them, they will put on the lasso special attachment for $10.
I love you guys, by the way.
Yeah.
But it that's something you have to, if you're going to buy a $40 pull buoy with $45 pull buoy with $20 euro shipping,
Euros.
you should have your screwdriver and hardware game down so that you don't mess that thing up, which I did on my first keel and ended up buying a second keel at Catalina.
Wow.
So that's the only kind of a downside, but I get why they did that. You know, they're kind of a minimalist company, like sleek design. Like they don't want to have all these.
Yeah.
And there's people, everyone has different preferences. There's the lasso people and there's the thigh attachers.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, and that's one of the things that we collectively love about Swimrun is that it's like whatever melts your butter. You want to do it this way, you want to do it that way. It's everything.
Yeah,
cool.
and like figure out you guys figured out some cool toggle system, which I want to hear more about. And like people experiment with it. It's kind of cool seeing what people come up with.
It's almost like a rite of passage.
Yeah, for sure.
It's,
definitely.
Whatever YouTube video they watch first, that's just what they're going to go with.
Yeah, whichever one seems most straightforward. So why don't we go into the rankings?
Let's do it.
And we'll defer to you guys as our co-host guests.
Well, are you going to explain or does everyone already know?
No,
I don't think they do.
Rankings
Yeah,
mean?
so it's a 5 pull buoy ranking where 5 is immediately purchase this.
Take
find
my
it,
money.
take the money, and 1 being
all the
like,
money.
I can't give you, and I don't want to give you any money, or I'm going to give you money to have this thing go away.
Or you're going to pay me to use this pull buoy as a mediocre racer.
Yeah. So one is really bad, 5 is the best, and half pull buoys are allowed,
are acceptable. So I guess I'll just kick it off here.
Oh, let's
okay. Yeah, sorry.
All right, Annie, do you want to go?
All right, I give the Ark Keel pull buoy an infamous pull buoy rating of 4.5 pull buoys. It is a super powerful pull buoy. There is no doubt about it. And looks don't really matter, but looks kind of do matter. And it looks dang sexy. And for the most part, that translates to super functional performance. I dock a half pull buoy because of those slightly over-designed elements that we talked about that may not need to be there and may also contribute to some discomfort for some people of certain body types.
Yeah. I changed my rating at the very last minute.
Okay.
Because I agree with Annie's docking of half, but I had a different docking of half. So I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 pull buoys.
Okay.
And half of a pull buoy lost because of a little bit over designed. I think it could be simple and still get the message across. And then another half is, and I know they're working tirelessly on this, so I'm really excited for it to happen. But it's a little cost prohibitive, I think, for people who are just getting into swimrun, and the shipping costs from Europe, and the cost of the product itself for a pull buoy. That I would say, if you're a new swimmer and just trying to get out and do it, it might not be the pull buoy for you. But because of all the awesome elements that we talked about in terms of ease of transition and how awesome it is in the water, it definitely deserves a solid 4 pull buoys.
That's a good score. Chipper?
Yes, I am going to. Now everyone's got me thinking about my score. I'm very score self-conscious now, but I'm still going to
You're like the guy who orders his dinner and wishes he ordered other people's dinner.
I'm score remorse. I'm going to toss it a 4.5 pull buoys here. I'm going to say this is the gold standard of swimrun pull buoys. Obviously, as everyone said, it's pretty sexy. It looks cool. Not that means anything, but it does. Yeah. I think someone already said that once. It's durable. I mean, it's like it's not getting dinged up, hitting rocks or anything. I'm docking points for. I think cost is a really, really good thing to mention, especially if you're shipping. And I know Ark Sports is working on U.S. distribution, and maybe that will bring the cost down. But I think when we ordered these, $50 U.S. plus, I think it costs 30 euros to ship. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we're talking, if you just get one thing from them, we ordered a bunch of stuff for Catalina. But, it could be cost prohibitive. And I will note, it's not something that if you took this and, don't try anything new on race day, but if you brought this brand new to race day, I think it would throw you.
It would own you.
Yeah. So it takes a little bit of warming up break-in period, if you will. You definitely want to practice with it, but it is... If you're a swim runner, this is the top of the heap, in my opinion, of pull buoys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm also giving it 4.5 stars.
Oh my word!
I can't believe I just did that. This is my idea.
Show.
This is my idea. The pull buoy thing was my idea.
Didn't you invent the system?
I did. I totally did.
See, I'll make them look good in post production.
Okay.
Yes. So
cut that out.
I'm giving this pull buoy 4.5 pull buoys as well.
Okay.
I think. The only thing for me, I totally echo everything everyone said. For me, what brings it down is cost for sure. And then also sort of the fit. I think that it's not as comfortable as it could be. And I think that goes a little bit to the way it was designed. But I do think it's an amazing pull buoy. I think that this pull buoy is similar to wearing, like, if you know how to run in them, for this example, the Nike 4%, where it's different technology than everyone out there, and it does make you faster. That's it.
Yeah.
If you're swimming in this, it's going to make you faster, and that's an advantage. The longer the course, the faster you can go, the less time you're out there, blah, blah, blah. And the difference between this and like a tier or sort of your traditional swimming pull buoy is night and day. Again, for me, that's the only thing that's keeping it from being a 5. But I think if you got $50 burning a hole in your pocket and you have an extra $25 for shipping, also burning a hole in your pocket, and you're totally stoked about swimrun, this is something that's going to improve your race performance once you're used to using it.
And it might just save your life.
Yeah.
Reveal.
This pull buoy actually saved my mom's life.
What?
So, long story short, real quick. She cut off her fingers trying to tie up a sailboat as I was finishing a swim run and meeting her at the sailboat, and she's bleeding everywhere on both hands. And I take the lasso from my pull buoy and tourniquet her brachial arteries on both her arms to stop the bleeding.
Jeez.
So that we can sail 40 minutes back to town and then drive an hour and a half back to the hospital
What?
with her fingers.
And
How are your
for the-
mom's fingers now?
She's still got 'em?
She's missing one complete. We call her 9-digit Nancy. And
But you
she's doing
saved
good now.
you saved nine of them or 8 of them.
yeah, we saved
7 of
3 of them.
3 of them.
Yeah.
That
But
is,
the arc, the arc lasso is what really saved her from
you know,
bleeding
I
out.
thought you were going a different direction because this thing, if someone's drowning, I'm just throwing them.
Yeah,
buoy.
just throw
It's like a
the
life
throw
preserver.
But
the keel. No, it's about it's all about the attachment.
yeah, I think our lawyers
Amazing.
would want us to mention though that this is not an approved life-saving device.
Yep. I knew that was coming.
But
Now, do you guys really have lawyers? Like your are they
looking
also
at
your
it right now.
producers?
Actually, I'm a lawyer.
and I'm married to
Yeah.
one.
Okay.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
I'm officially / unofficially Chipper's lawyer, also his publicist.
So that is the Low Tide Boyz Swimrun Lab collab Ark Keel Swimrun Pull Buoy review wrapped.
Yes. Thank you guys so
Boom.
much for joining us on that.
So lowtideboys.com for the review of this. We'll link to the Swimrun Labs review on their site. Check theirs out on swimrunlabs.com. They have a review section. It's right there. I checked it out earlier this week. So you have double resources for this review. Subscribe to both people's respective internet homes. Annie Brooke, thank you so much. Where can people find more about Swimrun Labs?
People can find Swimrun Labs at swimrunlabs.com, and we are Swimrun Labs on Instagram.
Thank you for listening to the Low Tide Boyz, a swim run podcast. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast and leave a review on iTunes if you're so inclined.
You can also sign up for a newsletter at lowtideboys.com. That's boys with a Z. And check out our meme page at The Low Tide Boyz on Instagram. If you have any questions or suggestions for the show, drop us an email at lowtideboys@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Writing Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of our swimrun activities, hobbies, and other bullshit we do.
Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
And then a run,
And then another swim.
then another run,
And then another swim.
and then run to the finish line. And just keep going until you're done.
Yes, or
Until
run
you
to
cross the finish
or run to the car.